All right, so today we're doing a deep dive on something a little different.
Oh,
Yeah, it's a legal thriller,
okay.
short story called The Vanishing Letter.
Interesting.
And even though we only have this one source as a jumping off point, it's really a wild ride
I can imagine.
through corporate greed
Yeah.
and high stakes lawsuits
Mm-hmm.
with a missing piece of evidence that just throws everything into chaos.
I mean, that's kind of a classic setup for a legal thriller, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. But
Yeah.
this one's got some really interesting twists and turns.
Okay, well, I'm intrigued. What grabbed me right away is
Yeah.
how this story, even though it's fiction,
Yeah.
really captures that pressure cooker of the legal world, you know?
Right.
It's not just about laws and evidence. It's about
Right.
those very human emotions and ethical choices that come into play when the stakes are this high.
Exactly. And speaking of high stakes,
Yeah.
let's meet our main character, David Sinclair.
Okay.
He's a top lawyer at this prestigious firm, Greystone Law, and he's taking on Leiden Industries.
Oh, lighting industries. I've heard of them.
Yeah.
They have quite a reputation.
They do. They're kind of like the poster child for corporations who exploit legal loopholes to just get away with environmental damage.
It's a shame how often that happens in the real world.
It is. And this story really makes you think about the real world consequences of those actions.
Right, the community's impacted.
Exactly.
Long-term harm.
Yeah, it's heavy stuff.
Yeah.
And in this case, David is actually holding what could be Leiden's downfall.
Really?
Yeah, a letter from a Leiden whistleblower detailing all their unethical practices.
That's huge.
This letter could make David's career,
I bet.
but it also makes him a target.
Holding that kind of evidence is like holding a ticking time bomb.
Yeah.
Not only is he under immense pressure to win this case, but now he has to worry about protecting himself and the integrity of that evidence.
Absolutely. And that's when things go sideways.
Okay.
So
Right.
picture this. David's prepping for this crucial meeting. The letter is right there on his desk.
Okay.
After the meeting, poof, gone, vanished.
Dude.
No sign of a break-in, no obvious suspects.
Talk about a nightmare scenario.
Right.
Suddenly, all that meticulous legal preparation he's done means nothing if the key piece of evidence is gone.
Yeah, and it's a huge violation, not just professionally, but personally.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, who do you turn to when you can't even trust your own colleagues?
Right. Like, who are you supposed to suspect?
Exactly. So he even starts suspecting the firm's partners.
Wow. That's a bold move.
It is, but think about the dynamics at play here.
Yeah.
These partners aren't just David's co-workers.
All right.
They're his mentors.
His competition.
Exactly, and in some ways, even the gatekeepers to his success.
So to even consider them as suspects speaks to the level of desperation he must be feeling.
It really does. And then there's Claire,
Okay.
David's assistant.
Hmm.
She's always been super reliable. But now David's starting to notice these little things. Like she's distracted, avoiding eye contact. Just little things that make you wonder if she could be involved.
I mean, it's easy to jump to conclusions when the stakes are this high.
True.
But let's think about Claire's position for a moment.
Okay.
As an assistant, she's privy to a lot of sensitive information.
Right.
But she also might be more vulnerable to manipulation or coercion.
Yeah, that's a good point.
What if she was forced into this situation somehow?
It adds a whole other layer of complexity, doesn't it?
It does. It's not just about who took the letter,
Right.
but what were their motivations?
Exactly.
What does that say about the lengths people will go to in these high-stakes environments?
And remember, we're talking about a legal system where whistleblowers often face retaliation.
That's true, even though there are laws to protect them.
Right. So whoever took that letter, they knew they were risking a lot legally and professionally.
Absolutely.
So David is already on edge, suspicious of everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And then he gets a call from the police. Yeah, they've uncovered a possible link between Claire's ex-husband,
Okay.
Jason Carter, and the missing letter.
Interesting. So now we have a potential motive.
Right. And this Jason guy, he has a history with the firm.
Oh, how so?
He's a former associate, left on pretty bad terms.
Okay.
Might even have a grudge against David.
So maybe sabotage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It casts a whole new light on Claire's behavior, doesn't it?
It does. Maybe she wasn't willingly involved,
Right.
but was pressured or even threatened by her ex.
It's like classic personal loyalties clashing with professional obligations.
And it puts David in a really tough spot.
Totally.
Does he confront Claire directly?
Right.
Does he go to the police with his suspicions?
Mm.
Does he risk jeopardizing the entire case to protect his assistant?
These are the ethical dilemmas lawyers face all the time.
It's true.
And it's a reminder that the legal world isn't just about facts and evidence, it's about people's lives and the choices they make under pressure.
Well said.
But before we get into what David decides to do, let's take a step back and consider what we know so far.
Okay.
We've got this missing letter,
Right.
a whistleblower, a corporation trying to cover up their wrongdoing, and a whole lot of suspects with their own motivations.
It sounds like we're piecing together a puzzle.
It really is.
And the more we learn, the more complicated it gets.
Exactly.
Yep.
Where do you think this is all headed?
Yeah, it really is like a puzzle, isn't it?
It is, and we're getting more pieces all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But let's get back to David. He's in a tough spot,
Yeah.
suspecting Claire, but also knowing how much she stands to lose if her ex is indeed sabotaging this whole case.
It's a classic ethical dilemma.
Yeah.
Loyalty versus duty.
Yeah, does he prioritize his professional obligation to win the case?
Right.
Or does he try and protect Claire even if it means jeopardizing his chances?
Exactly.
And remember, this entire case hinges on that whistleblower's letter.
Right, without it.
He's got nothing.
He's got nothing.
But with Jason potentially pulling the strings...
Yeah, it's a minefield.
It is. And let's not forget the corporation at the center of all of this.
That's Leiden Industries.
Exactly.
They're probably watching all this unfold.
Oh, I'm sure.
Probably have a whole team of lawyers ready to exploit any misstep David makes.
So David decides to confront Claire.
Okay.
He asks her straight up, did you take the letter?
And what does she say?
She denies it, of course.
Oh, of course.
But there's something in her demeanor that just doesn't sit right with David.
I mean, even if her denial is genuine,
Yeah.
her reasons for taking the letter, if she did, could be complicated.
Right.
Think about it if Jason threatened her.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe she felt like she had no choice.
Right.
Or maybe she truly believed she was protecting the firm from something even worse.
Makes you wonder about the weight of those secrets.
It does the burden of carrying that kind of knowledge.
Yeah, but right then, while they're talking,
Mm-hmm.
David's phone rings.
Ooh.
It's the police again, and they've got news.
What is it?
They've managed to trace some of Jason's activities, and it looks like he was trying to sell the letter to Leiden Industries.
Well, so that confirms Jason's motive, right?
He does.
And it also shows how far Leiden Industries is willing to go to protect themselves.
Right.
They were ready to buy stolen evidence.
Yeah, further proving their guilt.
Exactly.
So the police move quickly. They arrest Jason that evening, disrupting his plan to sell the letter and potentially sabotage the whole case.
Okay.
But just when it seems like David can finally breathe a sigh of relief, there's another twist.
What?
The letter is still missing.
Wait, so Jason doesn't have it?
He doesn't.
But we thought he masterminded the whole scheme.
I know, right?
So if he doesn't have it, then who does?
Exactly, and why haven't they used it yet?
Good question. It's back to square one for David.
Yeah. But with even more questions now.
Right.
He searches his office again, going through every file, every drawer.
Oh, man. Think about the mental and emotional toll this must be taking on him.
I know he's already grappling with the betrayal, the pressure of the case.
Right, and now...
It's enough to make anyone question their sanity.
I know.
And then just when all hope seems lost,
Yeah.
he finds it.
He
The
does.
letter was there the whole time,
Where?
tucked away in a folder Claire had been carrying.
Oh, wow.
It was literally right under his nose.
So all this time,
No.
he was so focused on the external threats that he just completely overlooked the obvious.
I think it's a classic case of tunnel vision.
Yeah, it is. When we're under pressure, when we're consumed by a particular narrative, we tend to overlook the simplest explanations.
And it speaks to the power of distraction, too.
Yeah, how so?
I mean, Claire wasn't intentionally hiding the letter. She was just so overwhelmed with the situation with her ex that she misplaced it.
But those consequences could have been catastrophic.
They could have, yeah. It's a stark reminder that even seemingly small actions can have unintended consequences.
Especially in a high-stakes environment like this.
Exactly, but what happens next?
Right. With the letter recovered, what becomes of the case against Leiden Industries?
Well, with the evidence back in his hands, David's able to move forward with the case.
Okay.
And faced with undeniable proof of their wrongdoings, Leiden Industries is forced to settle out of court.
They do.
They do. They pay a hefty sum and agree to stricter environmental regulations.
So they're exposed.
Their reputation is tarnished.
It's a victory for David.
Yeah.
For the whistleblower and for the environment.
It is, but it comes at a cost.
What do you mean?
I mean, the case might be closed, but the fallout is just beginning.
Right. What about Claire?
Exactly.
What about Jason?
What about David himself?
What happens to them after the dust settles?
Ooh, yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
What's that?
How even with this clear legal victory, there's still this sense of unease. Like we can't just neatly tie everything up with a bow.
Yeah, I think that's the thing about real life, right?
It is, and I think this story really captures that there are always consequences,
Yeah.
both intended and unintended.
Right, so Leiden Industries might be held accountable legally.
But what about the personal damage that's been done?
Exactly, and that's what I keep thinking about.
Yeah.
What about Claire?
I mean, even though David decides not to press charges, her world has been completely turned upside down.
Right, she resigns from the firm.
Yeah.
Her career, at least in this city, is probably over.
It makes you think about how easily someone's life can unravel,
It really does.
even if they're not the villain of the story.
Exactly.
So where does she go from here?
Right, what does she do next?
I mean, the story leaves that open.
It does, which is kind of haunting.
It is. It's almost like the author is asking us, the readers, to fill in the blanks.
Yeah, to consider the human cost of this whole ordeal.
Mm-hmm. And it's a question that applies to Jason, too.
Oh, absolutely.
He's arrested, facing legal consequences.
Right, but what led him to this point?
That's something I kept wondering about, too.
Yeah.
Was he always this bitter, this
Yeah.
vengeful? Or did something happen during his time at the firm that just twisted his sense of right and wrong?
Maybe he felt like he had been wronged somehow.
Right, like the system failed him.
It reminds us that even antagonists have their own stories,
Yeah,
their own motivations.
right. It doesn't excuse their actions,
Of course not.
but it adds another layer of complexity to the whole situation.
And then there's David.
Right.
He wins the case.
Yeah.
But at what cost?
He's gone through this emotional ringer, questioning everyone he works with,
Right.
realizing that the legal system isn't as black and white as he thought it was.
I imagine there's got to be some disillusionment there,
Oh, for sure.
even with a win under his belt.
Yeah, he's learned that justice isn't always clean or easy.
It can be messy.
It can.
It can involve compromise,
Yeah.
and it can definitely leave scars.
So it makes you wonder, will he ever fully trust his colleagues again?
Right. Will he approach future cases with the same idealism?
These are some heavy questions.
They are.
And I think that's the brilliance of this story. It's not just entertainment. It's a springboard for these bigger conversations about ethics, about corporate accountability,
Yeah.
about the choices we make when we're faced with difficult situations.
You know what resonates with me?
What's that?
How relevant these themes are to our own lives.
Yeah,
Even if we're not lawyers facing down corporate giants,
right.
we all encounter moments where we have to decide what we're willing to compromise, what we're willing to fight for.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this deep dive into The Vanishing Letter, we'll leave you with this thought.
Okay.
What compromises have you made in your life?
Mm.
What lines have you drawn? And
Yeah.
what would you do if you were faced with a similar situation?
Okay.
A choice between loyalty, ambition, and doing what you believe is right.
Sometimes the most compelling stories
Yeah.
aren't the ones that give us all the answers,
Mm-hmm.
but the ones that leave us with more questions.
Questions that linger in our minds.
Exactly. And challenge us to examine our own values and choices.
Beautifully said. And until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the stories that make you think.
We'll be here ready to join you on that journey.
We will see you next time.